have changed 3 sets of pads. They're a couple grand for your front.
For the front. A couple of grand for the front, so they're not
And a
cheap.
couple grand for the rear.
And a couple grand for the rear. So I have Scott here with me, who owns this magnificent 458 that you saw the review of, and I thought it would be very helpful to get a first-hand opinion on what it's like to actually own a Ferrari and drive it, because unlike most Ferrari owners, Scott actually uses his car. So, hi Scott, and thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you, Michael.
Now, I'm right in saying, you did mention you have had this car for 4 years, right?
This is my 4th season with her, yeah.
4th season with it, and every single year you've owned it, it has seen track time.
I've tracked it twice a month for the past 4 years.
Twice a month for the last 4 years, over track season, which is usually 6 months. So this car sees about 10 to 12 track days every single year. And it has, what, 82,000 kilometers?
We just rolled 82,000 on her last week.
82,000 kilometers. My 2012 Mustang has 35,000 kilometers, so that shows you how much this car gets driven. You actually drive this car to work, right? To do
I
work.
use it for errands.
Yeah, use it for errands. 82,000 kilometers of errands. So that should tell you something. Now, the question I probably get asked most frequently on Ferraris is how, if you exclude the purchase price, how prohibitively expensive it is to maintain. So you actually do your own oil changes here. You don't actually have to send it to a Ferrari dealer.
No, I actually send it to Ferrari for annual service once a year. It's due for annual service once a year. It's either 1 year, there's actually a timer countdown on the car, they reset it and it counts down 365 days, or 20,000 kilometers. I basically get it to 20,000 kilometers before the annual year ends on the countdown clock.
And that's probably the only Ferrari in the world that has that happen to it.
There's a couple that the Ferrari rep has mentioned to me that it has surpassed me. They had one in there last year with 120,000 K on it. So
wow.
I'm shooting for that title, but I haven't reached it yet.
Is it a 458 or is it
It's a 458
It's
Italia,
458.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
if there's anything to tell you, is that this car may be the most livable Ferrari in the world.
It is actually a very good daily driver, to be honest.
Yeah, and as you may have seen in the review, it's amazing how much it transforms once you put it in bumpy road. But even if you leave it, if you don't put it in bumpy road mode, it's not like, it's not punishing. It's certainly stiff, but it's not punishing. It's a comfortable car.
It is. I like to explore that button. Sometimes you're driving along and you're like, it's a little too smooth for my liking. You take it out of the bumpy road and you actually get to feel the raw Ferrari feel that Ferrari intended.
Yeah.
With the stiff and whatnot. But once you put it in the bumpy road, and if you know our roads, they're not the greatest.
No, they're not.
I try my best to avoid potholes, but occasionally you will hit one.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, it's it's a great daily driver. I don't drive it daily per se. I love hitting the highway. I'd barely take it in town because it's makes a lot of racket, and a lot of people don't like that. But that's something that I live with. But
a lot of people don't like that. I don't know what kind of people don't like that, but I know they do exist.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
they have 9-1 already pressed, and all they have to do is hit that last one, and yeah.
Wow. If Scott was my neighbor, if he drove by, I would call him and say, "Can you come back and do a few loops around?" Because my son likes to hear. Yeah. When my son actually saw a car, I don't think he saw this car, but he saw. It might have been a 488. I think there's a red 488 around. Yeah. And he calls it race car. So, if this ever comes around, I won't be calling 911. I might be calling Scott though. Now you said 82,000 kilometers and about 12 track days a year for 4 years. Well over 40 track days.
Yeah. Plus, we also run this a couple times a year on a couple different runways as well on. Exotic race day, a bunch of us get together. It's friendly races and stuff and whatnot. It's not a timed event. It's just more or less for fun, but we're out there to see who gets the fastest speed on the runway. So I've hit my max this year. Last time I was on the runway was 296, 297. Last year, the year before, my highest was 305. So.
305.
Yeah.
Wow. And how long is the runway roughly? Do you know? A mile or two?
It's a mile.
A mile.
Yeah.
So 305 in a mile.
And plus your slow down time.
Plus your slow down time. Yeah. So that's actually really.
There's no runoff on
really
on the
cool.
runway.
Yeah. So that's for those of us who speak miles an hour. 305 is 190. That's pretty darn close to 200 in a mile. Less than a mile because you still have to slow down, which is just incredible. And slowing down should be no problem. This is certainly the first entry-level Ferrari to have carbon ceramics as standard.
It's not an option for standard
not an option,
rotors.
yeah.
No.
And that takes me actually back to what I wanted to ask you, is that in all this time, in the 82,000 kilometers and the 40 or 50 track days that you've had it, plus all the runs, you're still on the original carbon ceramics, which are supposed to last the life of the car, more or less.
Now, mind you, I've changed 3 sets of pads now.
3 sets of pads, yeah. And I've seen them, and they're absolutely massive. Are they too expensive?
They're a couple grand for your front.
For the front, a couple grand for the front, so they're not
And a couple
cheap.
grand for the rear.
And a couple grand for the rear. So $4,000 for a set of brakes.
Yeah, just over.
Just over. And they obviously last a long time if you don't track them. But with track use, how long do you think they last you? A season or two?
A season.
A season. So that's in brakes, and then oil changes.
Oil change. Now, Ferrari does have a sale on oil changes every now and then. That's when I get in, but $2.99 for an oil change.
It's
reasonable.
It's reasonable.
Yeah,
It's a few $100. Really, the brakes are the only thing. And aside from oil changes and brakes, nothing. Really.
I had a major service. So my Ferrari rep called me a couple of years ago when I was in for service, and he said major service is due, and I was just like gulp. Because you hear the horror stories of engine out and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
This is actually the first Ferrari that's not engine out for major service. Which, when I had asked, I was prepared for him to come out of his mouth and say, "You're looking at about 20 grand." I asked him how much it was. He said $1,299. I said $12,099. That's not too bad. He goes, "No, $1,299."
And
I said, "Well, let's do her."
Wow, $1,299. So
for a major service.
Yeah, and that's Canadian. So that translates to less, maybe $1,000 or something US.
$1,000.
Yeah. So and that's only once that has to happen in the 82,000 kilometers. I mean, aside from the brakes, which probably would last forever if you didn't use them on track.
Yes, they would.
Yeah, they are huge. They probably would last a long time. But aside from that, that's consumables. I mean, that bad. And has anything gone wrong in all of that time? And
the only thing that's actually gone wrong was I flew off the track once. And luckily it was in a very safe zone where I was able to manage myself back onto the track, no problem, no damage to the car.
Okay.
It was nice and flat.
And that was
luckily.
more behind the wheel.
That was the guy behind the wheel that came into the turn a little too hot. So,
there you go. So that was really the only thing that's ever gone wrong with it.
That's the only thing that's gone wrong. Yeah. Oh, actually, there was one. One time the local law enforcement ended up towing. Well, they threw it on flatbed for me and kept it nice and cozy for a week on me. So, but other than that, those are the two main issues I've had.
Yeah, it was just like a courtesy thing.
It was a courtesy. They were just like, you look like you've had a lot of fun in this, so you should have a little week break. So that's what I did. I took a week off, and she was nestled away in a storage area, shall we say?
And that's probably one of the biggest things that you're going to have to keep in mind with this car. If you love driving, even the slightest amount, you have to track this car, because if you try to give anywhere near
honestly,
what it can do,
I can say this easily, is the track has saved me from getting in a lot of trouble with this car.
I'm not
because
surprised.
This car just wants to go and go and go and so on, and to get out on the track, you get all that adrenaline, you get the rush, you get to go as fast as you can, you get to brake even faster, and it's definitely it's hard to keep it down. And
I can imagine.
After 4 years, I've finally mastered that craft.
and I actually went for a ride along. I think it was last year with MHPDC. I went with a ride along on a ride along with Scott.
Yep.
And
Maritime High Performance Club. Best club around.
Yeah, exactly. And I was out there, a lot of track time, and I remember sitting there and thinking, this is must be one of the funnest car that you could ever possibly drive. But when you go from this seat to that seat, it's a completely different experience. It's just like, you can tell how fast the car is, you can tell how capable it is, and obviously how well it sounds. But when you're sitting here, there's nothing like this, and you have to take it to the track. There's absolutely nothing else.
You have to,
Yeah.
unless you're a garage queen.
Unless you're a garage queen.
You clean your car all the time, which
Yeah.
I don't have time to clean my car.
No. You either clean it or you drive it, I think.
yeah.
And I'd much rather do the latter.
Yeah.
So the only other thing I wanted to ask you is that it's not. So I did also want to ask you about the car. Obviously, it's not stock, so it's not only seeing a lot of track time. It's also seeing modifications.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've had every year I've sent it for service. Done a little tweaking and tuning through Ferrari. The guys there kind of got me thinking of a couple different options that were offered to me, and since then I have added the GT3 Challenge exhaust system straight from so I've got that from Ferrari, and then I had down pipes added, and most currently last year, which took it to the whole next level, was headers, where Ryan at Vader Performance hooked me up with, and then he also came here and did a tune on it as well, and that took the factory car from 562 to 620 horsepower.
And the manifold is different too, right? The manifold has the carbon fiber.
So it's the plenum. There was a warranty thing where one of the valves stuck, and Ferrari was warrantying it, and they basically swapped out the plenum for the cast aluminum to the Special, the 458 Special carbon fiber plenum. So that's helped it breathe a little bit better. So.
And it's only one of two cars in North America that has
one
that,
of two
aside
that
from
we're
the
aware
Special.
of that are actually done through Ferrari.
Right.
There are some aftermarket stuff, but this is actually all Ferrari parts.
authentic one.
Another, mostly cosmetic stuff I did was I have the out of the La Ferrari, I have the it's called the Flying Bridge, which if you notice in the center console, there's 3 buttons.
Mm-hmm.
There's your auto, reverse, and your launch control, which is called PS, power start. I swapped that out through I found a Ferrari dealership in the States was selling it. I saw it was sitting on their shelf a little too long, so I shot them a little lowball offer, and they said sure, why not. So I did that myself as well, which was very scary, taking apart the center console when you're in the Ferrari, dealing with Italian leather and carbon fiber that scratches very easily. So I did that myself. I changed my pads all the time by myself. Wheels, of course, you've noticed I have 2 sets of wheels.
Yep.
These are actually my street wheels. The other wheels I have are my track wheels, which are
the
Ferrari.
I had.
They're the factory ones that I had Ferrari paint Rosso Corsa.
Right.
The official.
Oh, actually
Ferrari.
painted by Ferrari.
Yeah.
Nice.
By the official color of Ferrari.
And what do you use for track tires?
Track tires, I've been using Michelin Super Sports for years, but as most people know, they are discontinued. So now I'm on to the new Michelin P4. So
Yeah. And I don't think this car would need any more grip from like a Cup 2 or something.
some Cup 2s would be nice. You'd make some track time cut down. So
I can only imagine that this car would do an absolutely serious time with Cup 2s. You've actually got it into the teens, I think, with the sports.
Yes. Oh,
Super Sports,
yeah.
Well into the teens,
yeah.
like 15s, 16s?
Lower
than that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
So there you have it. There's a Ferrari that actually gets driven. It sees track time. It sees a lot of kilometers. You can actually live with it. You don't have to take it to a Ferrari dealer to do an oil change. Aside from the pads, really, it's.
I've done so. Once I started getting higher mileage, I actually did start bringing the car to ISI Motorsport.
Okay.
To do a mid-season oil change.
Mid-season oil change, yeah.
Once again, this season I will send it back to Ferrari for full service, and then once again next year, halfway through the season, I will go back to ISI and do another oil change.
So 2 oil changes a season, one at Ferrari.
Now it's not necessary. I just do that as preventative maintenance.
Which makes a lot of sense. I mean,
I'm using it, so
Yeah,
I'd like
exactly.
So like I said, I don't clean this car much, but I take very good care of it.
Mechanically, yeah.
Yeah.
It's in
Which is
shape.
key.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And it seems to be serving you well. I mean, aside from those few outings, I should say aside, no car can run without maintenance. So you do a little bit of maintenance, and it actually I would call it reliable. I mean, nothing has gone wrong. One warranty item, and that's it.
Yep.
That's in 82,000 kilometers and a lot of hard miles. There are some everyday cars that can't even do that to 82,000 with that much hard launches, track miles, and airstrip runs
and lots of
to
cruising.
almost 200 miles an hour and cruising. And so there you have it. You can't actually own a Ferrari, and you can't track a Ferrari. Thanks so much, Scott.
Thank you, Michael.
And we'll see you on the next one.